with us. She was actually here a minute ago and has just dropped off, but she'll be back in a second. I suppose, first of all, I appreciate so many of you joining today. I know it's holiday season, but this is also a good opportunity. I did a poll in the last session we did a few weeks ago, and it was the majority, I think it was 80-odd%, were doing some work over the summer. And that's normal for any business owner. This is how it is. So this session today, even if you're on holidays, gives you food for thought. My view on this, I work quite a lot and I enjoy it, therefore it doesn't feel like it. I prepare for the autumn now, and I feel a lot better about that when I am ready for sales during the autumn, rather than turning up in August, September and saying, okay, now let's stop. So today's session hopefully will help you on that journey as well. I know quite a few will see this as a recording, but we will endeavor to go through it. The session today is often overlooked by many, and I want to go through it in a specific way. The fundamental question we all need to answer for our clients is this: why should I buy from you as opposed to all the other options and choices available to me? We've got to be able to answer this question. And it drives a lot of what we do in our businesses. It's not the easiest question to answer. It takes time. And I'm finding we do a lot of work at the moment with a lot of different clients, that answering this question is really hard when you're very close to your business. You see too many details rather than the picture. So I'm going to have this question in mind as we go through today's session. I'm going to start with marketing. What is it? It's misunderstood. Too many people think they know what it is and don't. Why most get it wrong in our starting points. Some reality stuff, because all very well with theory, we need to also take action. And I'm going through some actionable steps that we all can take to help with our business today. As normal, we keep it fairly flexible, questions and Q&A as we go. I think the majority here today speak Swedish, so we can do Swedish, English, doesn't really matter in the text and elsewhere. And then we'll finish off with a last call in a sense for the summer for anyone who's interested in the digital check stuff we're doing. Most of you, I'm just looking at the registrants and attendees here, most of you know us. I'm Edward Nugent, the founder of Digital Scorecard. This is what we do. We work with companies, helping them be better at marketing. That's fundamentally it. I work a lot with the MarTech stack as well as the principles of marketing. And over the last, I'd say, 2 years, I'm finding myself going further and further back into the principles. Because that's where the fundamental challenges tend to lie. One website over another, a button this color or that, moving it around, that's all tactical stuff that doesn't really give you a bounce in your sales. Getting it right in terms of your approach is what matters most. And joining me today is Kaisa. I'll let her introduce herself here as well.
Yep. Well, good that I can be seen, that I'm here. I disappeared there for a while, so that's a good start anyway. Yes, I think most of you know me since before also. So my background would be working as marketing manager, marketing director, and sort of very much that hands-on experience. I know what it's like. You have a limited budget, what you spend it on, what is it that makes a difference? And I just quickly want to go back to what Edward said there about the color of a button or the text describing a product or things like that. If you don't have any visitors to your website, that doesn't matter one bit. So it's always that kind of, I think the important part of the marketing is, where are my customers coming from? How do I talk to them? But I can only talk to them if I know who they are and their needs. And that's kind of the, as Edward said, much of the back to basics that we're doing these days.
Right, straight into it. The misconceptions, marketing your business. I actually was looking at this because I'm doing a bit of research at the moment on the principles of marketing and what it is and that sort of stuff. I think it's been derailed quite significantly because of digital. Because everyone now talks about reach, the channels, the views, click-through rates, CPMs, all that stuff, which isn't marketing. That's just elements of one channel, digital. And we're all getting derailed with this. Whereas marketing is about customer needs. It's about your brand. It's your positioning. It's your targeting and segmenting. It's about your market mix. Too many people miss this. Many start with market mix, which at least is better than starting with CTRs. Agencies derail you. Agencies are only talking about this stuff all the time. What are we going to advertise? What's in the text? If you do this right, this happens. If you start over here, you'll miss your customers. And this is what I'm finding more and more people are doing. Now, when I step back even further, and obviously implementation, it's the crucial piece because that gives us a feedback loop. When I go back even further into the overall cycle, where does marketing come from? It actually starts with, and what's the principle of marketing? It starts with market research. What do people need? It doesn't start with, we've got a product now, let's sell it. It starts with the needs. It should actually start before you have a product. This is the basics of it. But it's been forgotten. It's stuff people don't understand anymore. And it's fine to have the product what's beforehand, if you haven't done this, let's say, in the theoretical route, but it's not fine to just go and say, who can I sell this to? And there's a distinct difference, and I want to go through some of that today. Target client, who are they? Then what's our position to that target client? Then it's a marketing mix. Because if we don't know our target client, we actually can't define our market mix. What's the mix of your product, your channels, your pricing? All of those things, your place, they're based on who you're trying to attract. And then you implement. And inevitably, a lot of it goes wrong. So you have to evaluate and improve. And you go around this loop all the time. Truth be told, I'd probably say you do more like this as you evaluate. And you evaluate and change and you implement and you do that loop until you get it right. That's what you're doing. This is what marketing actually is. Now, what I'm finding most people are doing is they're not starting there, they're starting down here. I've got my product. I don't really know who my target client is. Now, nobody ever tells me that, but I know they don't know because they can't answer the basic questions. So we start down there, and I think it's even worse. We don't even look at the 5 Ps or the 4 Ps, depending which school you come from. They actually just look at a piece of one of them, which is advertising. How am I going to promote this thing? So we're down into a very, very specific piece of marketing without understanding anything. And digital has driven us there. And I know I've been part of that because I worked within that area, have done for a long time. But you can only do that if you understand the other pieces. And this is why I feel things are going a bit astray at the moment. This is what, if you're looking at an overall holistic view of a company, you're trying to see what your brand position is for your target audience who has a specific problem that your business provides the solution. You're different from your competitors because you have this advantage, and this is why I should believe you. This is like a brand statement. It's very clear. You have to know your client to do this. You have to know the solution you're solving. You have to know why you are best at solving that problem. And then you have all the details here. Who's the target audience? What problem are we solving? I spend a lot of my time here. Because if you solve that, you then work your way back to, well, who has that problem? How am I solving that problem? You know, why should you believe me that I can? Why do I have an advantage over others in doing this?
Edward, sorry, if you're drawing something, we can't see it.
Okay. That's all I can. So I don't know if that's you again or something. I don't know. We'll know in a minute because I'm about to draw something properly.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see. I'll start with a blank screen. I'm just annotating the screen. Maybe we'll see. And then let's see. Yeah. Catherine, yes, we would. There was a false narrative actually about Steve Jobs. He was obsessed with understanding the market. There was a narrative that he just did everything by the seat of his pants and decided on the fly. Not the case. Obsessed with it. Where he led, though, is he led by solving a problem he knew people had. They couldn't describe it to him. It'd be a bit like the saying from Ford. If he'd ask people what they wanted, they'd tell them they wanted a faster horse. They'd never describe a cow because there's no reference. It's a bit the same. So he's really good at translating the needs into a product. But they're obsessed with it. Apple is obsessed with it. They don't talk too much about it, but they are. And turning that research, that understanding into a product people want. And that's the gold dust. Making that transition. And there he was really good. I think Jobs was one of the best communicators out there. He did not focus on the product and the features. He focused on the benefit. And it leads, I'm going to come back to that because it's actually one of the biggest opportunities we all have today is communication. It's not making a product better. And here's why. So if I look at this, I drew one of these before. And for me, it makes my life clear for so many businesses. And now we'll see if this works. So I draw a line down here. You can see the line? You can as well, Kathy, yeah? Okay, great. So this is what I call the customer domain. And this is needs. And it's not just needs, this is clear identified needs or pains. Here is unclear. Or unknown. And this is where the Apple thing can come in, but I'm actually trying to keep this real simple today because there's a number of layers to doing this. This is your business domain. You control this 100%. You do not control your customers' needs. You can influence them, but you don't control them. But your own business, you control. That's this level. And this is a clear offer. And the opposite is obviously unclear. If you look at your business through this lens, you find things get simpler. Every B2B company should do this. Most B2C companies should do this. For a B2C company, I tend to take a level up, not at your product level. So let's say you had 100 products in your store. You don't take it product by product. I take it by the need of my client. Overall, what's their need, right? Am I clear in what they get, why they should work with me or not? This is where the money is. And this is easy. It's really hard to do. But I can tell you your product in 9 times out of 10 does not change. How you communicate your product changes. So the communication is really important here. If somebody has a clear need, but you don't have an unclear offer, you have an unclear offer, they still buy from you, but they're buying. They're asking you questions, they're clarifying your offer, they're trying to understand you. I'd say this is where most companies are today, an awful lot of companies are today. They have a decent product, they have It meets a need of a client, but is unclear. Down here is the graveyard of companies. You have an unclear offer and unclear needs of client. You don't want to be there. Clear offer, unclear or unknown needs, you tend to be selling. But people do buy. So there is money in it. It's just hard work. Now, if you're in a company that the client doesn't know what they need, oftentimes you're trying to influence this, and that's through education. It works, and you pretty much pull them up here so as to begin to see, well, actually, I have this need. And then you have a clear offer. So there's lots of ways of making this work, but understanding where the client is matters. Now, I've done a version of this. It's not showing now. Okay, that's a pity. Because I had a version, it might be later in the deck, where this is actually in clear text rather than my just scribbled here. So we'll see if it comes out later. Your main job in your business and your main job of marketing is making sure you're here. Now, there is another element to this, and this is especially for consumer-facing companies, and that's called a gateway product. And that can lie up here. It could even be a loss leader. You're getting clients to buy something that you know they really want and you have a good offer on it. And your lifetime value is much higher with them. They begin to get to know you and then buy from you. So there's many layers to how you do this. But too many companies are over this side. And not for malicious reasons, but they're actually trying to help clients. They're trying to give all the options open with all these things you can do. And by doing that, it often leaves things confusing. Doesn't make it clear. What Apple and Jobs were fantastic at was translating what the product did to what the client wanted. And they were brilliant at it. Less so today, I would say, actually. Times have changed. But now they have a different perception. I would buy nothing but an Apple. I couldn't even dream of going back to a PC. So you're indoctrinated, you're in. It's slightly different times. Now this is odd. Okay, so companies can make this happen. I'm going to skip that slide. Companies can make this happen by doing certain things. And one of them is this. So here's one. It's a company in Lund that has a probiotic that helps people with many different ailments. How do you get someone to buy? The best way of doing that is to focus in on an ailment that somebody has. So if I say this product will do anything, here's 7 different things that it'll solve, your chances of success is less than if you go with a very dedicated campaign and message to people with one of those and get them to buy it. They don't care about the other 6 things it solves. So if someone's IBS, someone's got SIBO, I'm just interested in IBS, not SIBO. If I got SIBO, I'm only interested in SIBO, not IBS. Chronic fatigue, the same. So you sell it based on the problem they have. Now, this is very obvious and easy, but it takes some time to get there because it's not easy to put these things together, especially when you're in your own business. You're often being too close to it. Now, the other choice here is to go abroad. Their biggest competitor, well, probably in the US, certainly their biggest funded competitor, would be Pendulum. They raised over $100 million, so they're a huge company. They don't have to be as niched. They can go broader, they can afford it. But as a small company, you can't. So you lead with how your customers are helped based on the syndrome rather than the generic brand. Whereas if you've got big pockets, you can go with the generic brand. It costs a lot more. Most small companies can't. So the advice in terms of how you market your business, most of the literature, most of the examples we're given are based on the company that's funded or the company that's successful. When you're starting, it's a different game. I have a tip for you here. I'm listening to podcast Acquired, I find it to be fantastic. I know I mentioned it before. The reason I really like it, it's the two guys in the US, and they basically spend between 3 and 5 hours talking about a specific company as a case. They've even done IKEA, actually. IKEA is the shorter one. I think it's the 3-hour one. And the Google one, I think it's 6 hours. Rolex is about 5 hours. And you listen to the start, and they go through the history. And that's much more relatable, because you can learn so much from what Rolex did. They play the same trick each time. Hermes is the same. They weren't successful until they were successful. Totally different way of working. Whereas we see them today and try and emulate where they are. It's crazy. Actually, if I knew the detail on IKEA, I would have saved a lot of time on a particular business I had in the UK as a startup. Similar kind of trajectory, similar kind of thing, direct to consumer furniture. A messy bloody business. So acquire it. It's really good for that as a podcast, especially now over the summer. We do the same. Our job is helping companies be better at marketing. And we actually have a proven 10-step method for this. We hide the method somewhat. We mention it. We have a guide rails. We reference it. And then we do marketing as a service. You have the same. So in your business today, just to consider, before I get to the next stage here, what do you help your clients with? And how do you credibly do this so as they understand it? It's super important, because this will then guide everything. We might go to a certain niche. We might have a certain starting point. We might have a certain trigger in people's lives. I quite like those, because it means that they're changing behavior. We have an interesting one on coffee at the moment. Why do people change the coffee brand? And I want them to change, because obviously we want our client to sell more coffee. But once they change to us, I don't want it to change again. It's kind of a rational need, but that's what we have to try and do and understand them. Otherwise, it's always transient. So we need to answer those questions. In terms of brand position and strategy, there's another picture I want to show you. And basically, it's simple. What do your customers want? What are your competitors best at doing? And what are you best at doing? Now, I'd be honest with this. With some things, your competitors are going to be better than you. It's just reality. And some things you'll be better at. Understanding the difference matters. So this is where we want to spend our time. Now, we're wasting our time trying to compete over here. Customers need that we don't service, and our competitors do. It's often easy when you see this and you're thinking, oh, I need to get that product, or I need to be active in that area. Saying no to stuff is equally important. The dumb zone is where we're battling with our competitor on stuff that our customers don't want. Customers don't value. It happens all the time. This is the important zone. Understanding where we and our customers meet. Now, this can also be communication. I think it's one of the most underused and underserved area, because the products tend to be the product. How we communicate the product can be very different. And that's matching what our customers want, as opposed to broadcasting what we have. And the risky zone is in the center. You really want to be playing here. And you really want to be trying to do this. Less waste, and more overlap with what customers want. And it's often niching down. This is why it works. You speak directly to one segment of the population. We'd often do this with customer data, what people have bought. With surveys, what do they say? So you begin to see, well, this is where you fit. Budget is a brilliant thing, not having one. Because if you've got lots of money, it's harder to make these choices. Because you start putting money everywhere and thinking, oh, I'll try this out, and I'm afraid to stop here. Because if you don't have any, and most small businesses don't, it's not a bad thing. You're actually forced to make the choice. It's a great thing. I think every single one of the most successful businesses I've listened to so far have had this challenge. They had no resource. We all think of Rolex as being a rich company. IKEA the same. They weren't always. They were broke, just like everyone else in starting the business. Hard to get going. So how do you make the choices? Lack of money and lack of resources forces you to make the tough choices. Forces you to focus on what matters most. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. So these are things you should ask when we're looking at your marketing of your business. How well is your brand perceived at meeting your target client's needs? This is not how good is your product for your client, because we all tend to ask that. If the customers only knew what we could do for them, they'd all buy. That's nonsense. It's how do they perceive us or our product? And I'm putting brand here instead, because that's really what it's about. Because if you're perceived as being the brand that best meets their needs, sales happen. So the only thing you need to work on then is, okay, how can I be perceived as being the brand that meets the needs? Right? Becomes fairly straightforward. That means you speak to the problem they have. You speak to their needs, understand them. This is where I always say you start with the pains. That's your segment. That's your communication. The product doesn't change. Too many talk about with the product. Making it better. So I'll make a better product for people who don't know about it. You know, it ain't going to work. But it's the intuitive, because we control it. So we focus on that piece of marketing, which is the easiest piece, because we know it well and we control it. It's not where the biggest impact comes from. To me, the biggest impact comes from communication today. It's the biggest option. Speaking to needs of clients to get them engaged and get them into our business. And there's so much noise there today. This is why I started with the first slide. What is marketing? It ain't about reach. It ain't about click rates. It ain't about that. But yet everyone focuses on that. It's actually about understanding and finding customer needs and serving them. It's a very different way of starting. It's actually nicer. It's a bit easier when we start to do this. It's hard in the beginning. I absolutely grant you that. It's really hard. We're doing an awful lot of sessions on with business owners this past couple of months as part of the initiative we have with C. And we can see it. And we see the exact same, but we have the exact same challenge. Every business has. How do you see the wood from the trees? How do you know what to focus on? That's the hard bit. But once you get over that hump, it does get easier. You get the new habits and start working on them. This is where the slide is. So it's just in the wrong place. So if you didn't see the last one, this at least makes it clear. Unclear offer, clear offer. You want to be there. And it's obvious. You don't want to be in a graveyard. This one you're always selling because you've got a good offer, but they don't understand it. They don't have a clear need. You're not matching what they want. Or they have a clear need, they know it, but you don't have a clear offer, therefore they're buying from you. I've had that case. I have a client in the UK, that's exactly what happened. He ended up in a meeting, it was somewhat embarrassing, probably 2 years ago now, trying to basically summarizing for me, well, this is how you can help me. I mean, that's crazy. Because even during the call, I said, this is crazy. Because I was saying, well, this is how it can work. And it didn't get through. Right? But then they explained it back in their terms. I thought, yeah, we cover that. Client is buying. Whereas you have to always try and get here. So recognizing those situations, recognizing the craziness of your client saying to you, this is how you help us. And I think, yeah, we should be telling you that, not you telling me that. Means you have a chance of moving across to get clear. We've spent an enormous amount of our time over here this past 12 to 18 months. What do people really want? What do they need? So have a clear offer that matches client needs. And it's really important. Matches client needs comes in here. This is where it might just be for their initial purchase. It might be a gateway product. Then you look at lifetime value. And the second part here is, how do you influence client needs? Because it's never just as clean as all that, you know? It's never as clean as this. A lot of clients can be sitting here. So how do you get them up here? How do you influence them? What's your plan for that? Or if you know that you've got a big client base up here, just serve them and then grow it. Most, that's not the case. Most, it's quite tricky. But you do control this. You have 100% control on that. So I have no sympathy for anyone having an unclear offer. SaaS companies are terrible at this. Because this is what we're aiming at. And I started using this term a couple of years ago. The longer and the more time I'm spending in it and digging into the principles, the more I believe it. Because what is really marketing about? It's not just about promotion. It's not about advertising. It's not about just communication. It's the whole lot of it. Understanding client needs, define your business to serve that need, and communicate it clearly. So then, no question in my mind, the one who's best at that wins. Not the best product. So actionable stuff I want to get to. So I've covered that off, that matrix, so you can try and understand where do you fit into that. Covered off on what marketing is, where a lot of the challenges often are. So I have 3 actionable components here. We've got to meet client needs. The client has to know this. This is where communication comes in. And we have to be relatable to the client. Now, these two are very strongly linked. If they like you to buy from you. If you show empathy with them, they're likely to buy from you. To do that, we probably have to know their needs. And it's bloody obvious then we should be meeting their needs if we know that. These 3 hang together. Becoming known by clients. Again, this is why I focus on pains, because people focus on themselves. They focus on what's top of their mind is the pains they have, the problems, the challenges. And then we need to engage them. There's no point in saying, just buy this stuff now. That won't be a relatable brand. If you're a large company, you get away with this, but we're not. All here, look at the list, we're all small companies. So we need to be managing from that. So customer, message, and implementation. If I was forced to say, what's 3 things I want to work on, they're the 3. Who's the client? What do they want? What do they need? Always the same. How do I get them to take action? And that's where my message comes in. And then making sure we've implemented. And we keep implementing and changing to get it better. The client is easy. I start with the pains and the needs. I don't really care who they are first. That's my second, third. Age comes later. Pains comes first. Now, there's certain things age matters. Like the case this morning, focusing on pregnant women. This is an age group then. And then it matters. And then you look at their needs. And then you have your data that tells you what they're buying, how they act, how they buy, and what other options are available to them. So begin to understand that. The pains, needs, challenges is how we communicate. Because if you talk about challenges people have, they're more likely to recognize themselves in those challenges and therefore listen to you. And then they'll start asking the question, who the hell are you? And are you part of the solution? Beforehand, they don't. They don't care who you are. That's a good thing in the beginning. So we can make this a little bit simpler. And the message is, how do we speak to clients? And it's across all these channels. What's the point of the channel? To me, social is brilliant for traffic. It's usually early in the sales funnel, service discovery, credibility. Email is a little more intimate, a little bit further down the line, and helps with sales and follow-up. So you put all that together with the reasonable calls to action at each stage, because you have to have those. We want people to take an action. And what you're really doing with the communication part is framing your solution in the client's world. You're not just saying, buy this. You're saying, this is where you are as a client. Here's challenges you're likely to have. And this can help. And you've got these other options as well, but this is why our option we think is pretty good. So it becomes simpler. And it's back to that expression I used before, Matt Sykes' book. The only thing that came out of it was that. Join the conversation going on inside their head. If you continue to have that on loop in your own head, it's a really useful tune to have. Because you're always asking that. What is the conversation going on inside their head? If I don't know it, got to find out. It's also the route to get attention. Because you talk about what's going on inside people's head, they take notice. So all of a sudden, social gets a little bit easier. It's never easy, but a little bit easier. So implementing this, you can do things like outreach. So you see, does it work, you know? We do an awful lot of events like this, so we do a lot of cold email. It works. So I'll do more of it. So that loop seems to work fairly well for us. I really like to have a go-to call to action. So for any business, how do I enter your business? It's really good to have one. You can add more, but it's great to have at least, you have, this is what we always do. It helps get people in. It's really useful. B2C, you can do it social and a call to action. I want to show an example of that in a second. And this gives you your feedback loop. So this is the implementation piece. If it works, do more, get it better. If it doesn't, obviously you're not speaking to the client in the way they want to be spoken to. So we adjust, adapt. Momentum is really what we're after, and it's really hard. This is the issue for the smaller company. It's tough to get momentum. How do you get there? How do you get enough people ordering and talking about you so you get that? That's actually the hardest challenge, I would say. At this point, then you can start looking at advertising. Not before. Even though in my own business, I started with advertising, but it was a different case and it was a long time ago. So how do you start this? Where do you want to be in 6 months? So if I was here now, what do I want to have done by the end of this year? How are you going to get there? Because the end of the year comes really quick. Time just flies by. I now set, and I don't always succeed, a goal for my week in terms of marketing. So what actions did I take this week on marketing? I failed completely last week. No, sorry, I didn't. No, I'm doing the event this week, and I actually promoted it last week. So no, I didn't last week. The week before, I had nothing. Traveling, busy, nothing. Bloody annoying. So every week, I want an action that's fairly significant, that's marketing for our business. The beauty about events, you set a date. Okay, that's that week covered. I need to promote it. Week before, I need to promote it as well. Gives me content as well. So you do this. So you're marketing your business. You have some loop you're always in. And then this piece typically takes 8 weeks. What's your target client, what message, and implement it. The programs we're running typically are 8 weeks. This is why we know it's usually an 8-week cycle. And it's frustrating and it's difficult, especially the first couple of weeks. I think there's a few people in today's session who are going through that with us at the moment, at different stages, actually. And you always get to the end that it becomes clear. But it is a process to go through. And then positioning, basically, is what we mean to clients. And nailing this down is all it's about. It's hard work, and you've nothing to show for it for the beginning. But you begin to systemize and you begin to work it out, and it begins to make sense, come together. Your social all of a sudden makes sense to clients. Your website speaks to clients. You're getting more people making requests. Your emails are beginning to sell. But it does take time. That's the way I would look at it. It's the easiest way to begin to get better at marketing. And there is a hell of a lot of different things to do here. Part of this series, this is the first session in this series, I'm going to do different topics and different angles to it, based upon being more actionable. Because this is also how you can begin to view the world. What's your main job? It's in the marketing of your business. We can't avoid that. I'd almost say you can't have a business unless somebody in your business has this as their responsibility. And normally it is the founder. We have to make time for it. That's why I have my actions in the sheet that this week, what am I going to do that's marketing related? It's really important when you're busy to have that slot, because when you're busy, you tend not to do it because you're busy and you're selling and everything's going great. But then you'll have a quieter period because you haven't done the marketing when you're busy, and you don't want to be in that situation. So that's why I would have that slot regardless, when you're busy or not. You have to be in this business of marketing your business. Guidelines. We used to actually work with startups. All of a sudden, we work with a lot of startups, and it's just a different perspective. Startup is basically a game plan to get going. And the established, you tend to be trying to find the direction, use the data at hand to make decisions. You have to have both parts, implementation as well as knowing what to do. Now I split them. This is not correct academically or theoretically correct in terms of the labels, but it's the ones I find people relate to. Digital strategy tends to be implementing stuff. Market strategy tends to be understanding stuff, roughly, as a guideline. And you have to do both. This is the steps we go through. What's the target client? How are you going to stand out to them? What channels are we using? How are you positioned? And what's your purpose? There has to be a combination of all these that you think, okay, this is what my business is and what it stands for. Because knowing the client's not enough, it's considering what's of value to them is what matters. This is why I go with pains, challenges. Because if you solve those, you're valuable. If you don't, less so. Hence focusing on that. Being known, we'll cover this one. Getting clients to engage and then turning clients into more clients. They fit into the 3 steps on a sales pipeline. Sometimes you need to spend more on one rather than the other. Startups tend to need to focus more here because they don't have clients. Established companies, more here. But you need all of it to make it work. So this is more tactical, and this is kind of down to where a lot look at marketing. They think this is what marketing is. It's not. It's a piece of it. It's the implementation part, and it's especially in digital. Target client, then we need traffic of our target client. Then we need them on a landing page that actually talks to the target client. And then we have a call to action that's reasonable for the target client. It's alignment. If you're doing advertising, then the advertising there comes outside that. That, again, has to be based upon a target client wants, needs, and takes an action on. So often we see this misaligned. It just takes time. There's no easy way with it. And your call to action has to match what you like to do, what's reasonable for your client, and what's of value to both. That's it. Yeah, this is the one I showed earlier. This is a very simple call to action. Here you can read more or you can buy it. But here it's speaking exactly to the audience. 93% based on a verified survey said this product helped them to a specific target group with specific pains. This is just the layering to it. There's actually a level, especially with this one, on given the solution is a probiotic, it can be seen as too generic. Everyone has got a probiotic, so we need to have it clear that not all probiotics are the same. And then you layer in the different symptoms people have, pain points, and then here's a product. And layer on top of that again is the verified survey backed by clinical trials. This stuff works. So remember the initial statement I had. Who are we serving? With what? Why are we credible? Why is this good for them? You wrap the whole thing And then you have the implementation part with landing pages. Here we use a quiz quite a lot. Email, follow-up, buy, survey, turnaround advocates. Just like the usual kind of stuff. The work, this is all tech kind of work and content. This takes a lot longer. What are we doing? And you can use both in tandem, and they should be. This other example we use with the Sology Perfume Company. So the expertise, it's not a pain point people have, but using the expertise of what fragrance suits you. Take that quiz. And it's based upon what a perfume is made up of. So you can answer this question. It's the main one people have. Is this for me? So is your product or service for your clients? Will they say, yes, this makes sense to me? That's a core part of what we're trying to do. In a repeatable, structured way to solve clients' problems. This is really important for you because it's got to be repeatable. Otherwise, it's just too hard. And structured means you can do this all the time fairly easily. It's obvious. Like, for example, we do events is one of our big things. So it's structured. Once a month, at least, there'll be at least one event. So everyone knows what to do. It's easy. And it suits because this format works well for us. So you need to find your one. We worked with the pet companies this past couple of months, and they're, I think, an ecosystem. So there's a couple of clients actually pulling together into that one. Because pet owners, if you're dog owners or horse owners or riders, you've got a need. Pull them together. You can actually talk about tips and challenges for that group. Everyone wins. That can be repeatable as well. So once a month or once a quarter, we'll talk about these challenges. Same with the emails. So you systemize. Makes everyone's life easier. To try and this is all from what people say marketing is, and it's not really, but you are trying to say the right thing at the right time to the right people. And I'd say that should be completely the other way around. You start with the right audience, with the right message, and the right time matters less. The worse your message, the more the timing matters. The worse your targeting, the more the timing matters. So I'd reverse that. It's just much easier to say it the way it's written. But in reality, it's the other way around. It's why search traffic converts. Timing is good. I'm searching, I'm looking for something, my intent is high, therefore I buy. It's when they're not searching. It's the heart of it. The other thing about marketing, it's not advertising. Advertising is just one small part. It's actually one part of a part of a part, right? Because it's part of the marketing mix. It's one of the pieces in there. And of the marketing mix, it's only a part of the communication piece. So it's small. Yet, it's seen as the biggest piece. One of the reasons for that is because of Google, because of Meta. All they want to do is you to spend money to try and reach people. They don't really care what you say. In fact, the more you advertise, the better. So the less effective you are at marketing, the happier they will be. That's the reality. So they don't help with this. So I'd be very wary of that. And then the operational steps. Get the traffic to the right web pages. Have your engagement mechanism. Have the message that actually relates to clients. You've got to have a follow-up. And then you've got to be turning clients into new ones. Hence, the tools you like is surveys and widgets, email, landing pages. That's the language of implementation. And then you see what works and feed it back. Too often, this is seen as marketing. This is the operational implementation steps of marketing. You need it. Without it, nothing works. Because if you don't implement, you've got theory, and that's no use to anyone. But it's only a step, and that's why people get stuck. Because they look at the implementation. Okay, I need to create a web page. And again, well, who's it for? What do you want to say? What do you want it to do? That's what matters more than what does the web page look like in terms of the order. So it's finding your angle within all this. This is what you do. You put it all together and think, oh, this is what I do. This is how it works. This is why someone should buy from me. back to the very first slide. Why should someone buy from you as opposed to all the other options available to you? By putting all this together, you answer that question in a credible way that people believe you. Yeah, okay. Had the slide here, I didn't realize. Because this is what drives it. This is why I use this one, even though it's actually a little bit after, because we think of the principle of marketing is to define the needs, a little bit like Kathleen was saying. Define the needs, get a product that matches the needs. This basically comes afterwards. But it's good enough for us. By all means, it's good enough. Because if we get to this point, we are then kind of reverse engineering it. Anything to add here? I've gone through it as a overall picture. I have a number of questions that came in as people signed up. Actually, a tip also for anyone, I didn't do this before, and it's ridiculous. I've been doing webinars for years, and I tend to do questions in the session or surveys or whatever else. Whereas on this software we're using now, there's an option to add the question in the sign up, and it's brilliant because it works. So I have a number of questions or statements, the challenges that people have with it. So we can go through some of that if we want. Otherwise, I have a few other things to cover off here today. I don't think there's any more here, Kaiser. If any comment, otherwise I'll go through the next couple of slides and then we can cover that maybe.
Yeah. No, I'd say go straight into the questions because that might lead to other questions.
Yeah. So the next time somebody asks you what business you're in the business of marketing your business, and you can call it whatever you want. You're in the business of marketing your consultancy business, the business of marketing my sustainability business, whatever it happens to be. To start thinking in those terms, rather than just being defined by the product or service you do. So just before we get into the questions, I don't know if anyone's interested here. I know we have quite a few in today's session that are already actually working with us. There is this opportunity with C, and we have a lot of companies already in. And here's some of them. If you're in the session and you're not here, it's purely because I didn't have time to add you here yet. But here's a bunch of companies that we're working with over the past 2 months or are just started with over the last couple of weeks. So the variety is enormous. From a company that does pillows and sheets and blankets in Kristianstad to Cafego, coffee provider, to Petsto, an e-commerce pet supplying company, to Dalinico, which is the ecological and it sounds crazy in English, poison-free. There's got to be a different term because it's maybe YIF3 sounds, I won't say nicer, but it sounds more reasonable. Whereas poison-free sounds insane. Why are people selling products with poison in them? Doesn't make any sense. So, although it's happening a lot at the minute, to Knitted for You. So there's a wide variety. A very, very similar approach we go through. Different challenges. There's always differences, but the process is more or less the same. You've got to get clear on what do we do, how do we communicate that, and who is it for? Not necessarily in that order. Normally the other order. Who is it for? What do we do? How do we communicate? And we work through that. So if anyone's interested in joining, it is still open. I cannot say how long more. This month and next month. I cannot guarantee September. We have a meeting in August to decide that. Anyone who's in already, no issue. It's done. You're in. It's already in play. But anyone thinking today, even if you want to start in August, you need to get in soon because we may actually make a significant change here. The 8 odd companies we're working with going through this, it's as a learning experience to see how we can share knowledge, how we can get a different process going for some of this, also within the Förening. So basically, match funding. You pretty much talk to Kaiser. I will drop a link in here. Okay, I think it's in the chat now. Yes.
Yeah.
So if you're interested, click that and apply. And if you apply, you're not necessarily approved and you're not necessarily accepted, but you also not necessarily have to continue, right? So there's no commitment until such time as you're after a call and we see does this work or not. Realistically, we're starting August, but anyone who wants to join sooner, we normally will start the ball rolling so we can start thinking about their business. Because one thing that I know is it takes time. There's a processing time for us, but also for you going through this. I'm sure some of you who are here in the session today realize, it does take the 8 sessions to go through to clarify and go back a step, forward a step until you get there.
Edward, I was just going to add there. I'm just going to put my email address in there also. If anybody got any specific questions in relation to the digital checks, just send me an email. And but it's basically to get help with your marketing.
Yeah, exactly. That's been one of our challenges because it's quite broad. So if I go out with a scheme, it would make you better at marketing your business. It's quite broad. At the same time, it's exactly what we do. So hence we have we narrow it down, but it's still tricky to describe some of this. That's pretty much what it is. Questions we had. Sorry, before that, alumni. We're actually going to continue this theme in the alumni, which will be in August 21st. So the usual. So it's usually the fourth Thursday of the month. This in August it cannot be. We are on holidays, so it's the 21st. And then C has the event on Tuesday, the 12th of August. And that's about selling on Amazon, selling on Amazon or not, it's a question. And there's a lot of learnings in there. We've actually done a lot on them during the past 9 odd months. And I love them as a customer and I hate them as a partner. It's kind of my reflection on it right now. But for companies who own their own product, it is a platform with a lot of traffic. So there's opportunity there. So we've kind of covered that off in our experiences within the session. I leave you with the message, and it's a little bit like we had in the beginning. Best time to start being good at marketing is 6 months ago, because then you'll begin to see the rewards of it. The second best time is now. And I don't care if it's with us or someone else. You'll realize that when you're into it. The more you invest early on, the better. You'll thank yourself. It's like preparation work. Rather than when you need it, it's pretty much too late because it does take time. So some of the comments that come in, with a couple actually from the tourist sector. I recognize the names from before. Tight economy. It's tough in terms of sales, and I know tourism sector tends to be hit fairly hard, and it's slightly different. We ran a program actually for the Research Now in industry or tourism industry some years ago, and that's when we realized it's different. Repeat clients for some businesses don't exist, so you need to structure it differently. But knowing how to market in your business matters. And it's just how it is. What I tend to look at here is, yes, it's a tight economy, but it's a tight economy for everybody. So why should they come to me? What's in it for them? People want more value for money, or the perception of that. Doesn't mean they're going to spend less, but they need to be convinced they're spending it in the right place. That's usually what it means when it's tight. We question a little bit more. We want a little bit more value for money. We take less risk. That's not just tourism industry, that's everywhere. So that's how we begin to think about it when things are tighter. The thing that fascinates me in economics is the difference between a tight economy and a loose economy is a couple of percent. It is crazy. Economy growing at 2 or 3%, it's booming. Everyone's happy. 2 or 3%. Economy that's 0 or minus 2% is dead. It's quite extraordinary, I find. But, you know, we're going between 98% and 102%. One is brilliant and one is really bad. That always fascinates me with the economies. Understanding customers. One actually has one. We've gone through that quite a bit today. Getting over that I am the product. And that's an interesting one. Because in a small company, you often are a big part of the product. And sometimes there's two things to that. Get out of your own way is one part. And the other part is getting used to it. You don't see yourself anymore there. You're actually part of the business. That's a habit. Often, for example, we're doing webinars and screens and all that kind of stuff. In the beginning, it's awful. You think, gee, I don't want to see myself on there. After a while, you don't see it. So you get away from you being part of the business, and sense of being seen disappears. It's the same with getting over that thing, I find. Resources, we all would like more. There's no question about it. But there are advantages in not having them. Really focuses the mind. Now, everybody would vote if they had a chance to have more resources, of course. But you know what? There's a laziness in it. And I'm still fascinated. All those companies, from IKEA to Rolex to Hermes, all of those companies, I looked through them. They all had risky points when they could have failed. All of them. Google included. Actually, Google is really interesting. I remember a lot of it. You know, they equally could have disappeared than not. The fact they had no resource meant they survived. Because I don't think they would have taken the actions they did if they had more resource. So it's quite interesting when you don't have it. You make use of it. And all of that. We're 2 minutes over, guys, so I think we'll probably, yeah. Thanks, Kathleen. We'll talk to you again. And if there's no more questions, I think we might end today's session and let everybody go home as well.
Yes.
Ja.
Yes. Som sagt var, frågor och funderingar som dyker upp så här. Ibland kan det vara så att man kommer på saker i efterhand. Skicka ett mejl. Det är alltid bra för oss att få input också inför framtida webbinarier när det gäller områden och liknande som är viktiga eller sådant som ni kämpar med av olika anledningar. So,
and actually, if there's any other comments or stuff on terms of the topic area, just let us know, because I have a few items we're going to do in this series. So any other ones, good to know. Yeah, good to see you all, and see you soon. Thanks.